Fallout 2, a post-nuclear RPG. I returned to the wasteland to punch rats for another dozen hours. But this isn't Fallout, this is Fallout 2. We already have a fancy new suit of power armor on the title screen. Perhaps the rats have also received an upgrade? Maybe even their own rat power armor? The possibilities are endless, as long as they're possible in the same engine as Fallout. This game only came out a year later, after all. I definitely need to get up to date on its current situation, so let's see if there's been any changes to war since the last game.
Give me a kiss to build a dream on, and my imagination will thrive upon that kiss. Sweetheart, I ask no more than this, a kiss to build a dream on. Give me a kiss before you leave me, and my imagination will feed my hungry heart. Leave me one thing before we part, a kiss to build a dream on. When I'm alone with my fancies, I'll be with you, weaving romances, making believe they're true. Oh, give me your lips for just a moment, and my imagination will make that moment live. Give me what you alone can give, a kiss to build a dream on. War never changes. The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted. Too many humans, not enough space or resources to go around. The details are trivial and pointless. The reasons, as always, purely human ones. The Earth was nearly wiped clean of life. A great cleansing, an atomic spark struck by human hands, quickly raged out of control. Spears of nuclear fire rained from the skies. Continents were swallowed in flames and fell beneath the boiling oceans. Humanity was almost extinguished, their spirits becoming part of the background radiation that blanketed the Earth. A quiet darkness fell across the planet, lasting many years. Few survived the devastation. Some had been fortunate enough to reach safety, taking shelter in great underground vaults. When the great darkness passed, these vaults opened, and their inhabitants emerged to begin their lives again. One of the northern tribes claims they are descended from one such vault. They hold that their founder and ancestor, one known as the Vault Dweller, once saved the world from a great evil. According to their legend, this evil arose in the far south. It corrupted all it touched, twisting men inside, turning them into beasts. Only through the bravery of this Vault Dweller was the evil destroyed. But in so doing, he lost many of his friends and suffered greatly, sacrificing much of himself to save the world. When at last he returned to the home he had fought so hard to protect, he was cast out, exiled. In confronting that which they feared, he had become something else in their eyes, and no longer their champion. Forsaken by his people, he strode into the wasteland. He traveled far to the north, until he came to the Great Canyons. There he founded a small village, Arroyo, where he lived out the rest of his years. And so, for a generation since its founding, Arroyo has lived in peace, its canyons sheltering it from the outside world. It is home. Your home. But the scars left by the war have not yet healed, and the Earth has not forgotten.
Not quite what I expected to happen after getting kicked out of the vault. I thought Fancy Dan would just go back and live with the Brotherhood. I didn't show it on screen, but I did get a room in their base, complete with a roommate and bunk bed after becoming an initiate. Anyway, when it comes to creating a character, the first game was all about big guns and melee weapons, so this time I'm switching it up and going small guns and unarmed. I'm also trying a more charismatic, speech-based character, because some of the encounters can be real tough if you go the combat route every time. Looking at you, Harry. Oh, and sex appeal is new. I think it originally was some sort of bonus for fighting at night. Well, as tempting as it is to take on a charismatic character, I really doubt it's going to come up too much, so I end up ignoring the traits again. I like a nice, well-rounded character rather than a super specialized one. This certainly won't be an issue in the future. Most certainly.
Come in, Chosen One. There are things you must know. The village is dying. The signs are everywhere. Withering crops. Dying Brahmin. Sick children. There is hope, however. A slim hope that few know of. The old discs speak of an item called the Garden of Eden Creation Kit. It is said it can bring life to the wasteland. This will be your quest, if you prove yourself worthy. For that proof, you must first journey to the Temple of Trials. If you survive, come back to me. We will talk more. Our life is in your hands, Chosen One. Prove yourself. Find the gecko. Be our salvation.
So, this is different. Seems like I wasn't the only one making endless comparisons to more fantasy RPGs, as the developers decided to give me all the fantasy RPG I could ever want. The story of the first game has become a legend passed down through generations. We got a prophesized chosen one going on a quest, and I'm beginning the game in a classic ancient temple dungeon. No rats this time though, ruining my intro for the video. Overall, Fallout 2, at least at the very beginning, seems to be more silly than the first game. Not to say that Fallout was an extremely serious game, but I wouldn't call it comedic in the same way that Fallout 2 seems to be going for. Unarmed already pays off by making the various ants and smaller than average radical scorpions completely trivial to fight. Oh, and fantastic! I'm already stuck in the first 5 minutes of the game trying to get a key for this door. Looking back at it, this was probably supposed to be the learn how to use skills like lockpick tutorial, but I really thought there was supposed to be a key somewhere. At the end of the dungeon, I'm forced into a fist fight to prove my worth as the chosen one. Or not. Thanks, speech skill. And I get the sacred Vault 13 uniform and Pip-Boy. Oh sure, Fancy Dan could have bequeathed the power armor from the first game to me, but I guess the Vault uniform is just as good. Back in town, I get the Vault 13 flask and some info about a Trader Vic, who may know where a Garden of Eden creation kit is. By the way, the flask is an item that you can get by bartering with the water merchants back in the first game. Aside from inexplicably having the Vault 13 logo on it, despite being held by somebody in the hub, it doesn't seem to do anything, which I assume is the joke here. And since I'm just explaining references at this point, Trader Vic's is a restaurant in California. The founder is one of the people who have claimed to have invented the Mai Tai. Also, the gecko is something that was mentioned back in the manual for the first Fallout, so here's the info on that. Elsewhere in town, I engage in traditional video game quests before starting my journey out into the wasteland. This guy needs me to weed his garden, which I do by punching giant plants to death. Nearby, this guy wants me to find his dog. Look at these little gecko guys. I love their animation. Oh yes, and I knew that I'd be seeing a lot more random radioactive green slime as this series went on. It's too iconic of a pop culture thing for the developers not to include. Okay, that's enough side questing. Let's go find Vic. Moseying over to Klamath, the first thing that I notice is that they reused some of the fleshy bits from the Master as cow feces. It's a goofier game, I told you. Immediately, there seem to be a lot more things to do in towns. As you probably noticed from the Fallout playthrough, I'm the sort of person who is extremely focused on completing the main quest above anything else, so I'll likely end up not doing most of them. Or I'll be doing them much later when it's very easy and largely pointless, like killing the Khans or clearing out the Rad Scorpion cave back in Shady Sands. Doing the usual running around town looking for unique NPCs, I find myself in a canyon west of town where there is a crashed vertibird and a couple of dead enclave guards, who seem to be the guys in the power armor from the beginning of the game. There's also an angry robot here, so I'm not going to be hanging out here any longer. Over on the east side of town, I find Vic's place, but no Vic to be found. I could steal all his stuff while he's out, but I'm not that desperate. Yet. Asking around, I find a guy who abruptly decides to teach me more about unarmed fighting, making the skill points that I just put in it completely obsolete. Great. John Sullivan here learned the art of pugilism living in Reno, but he refuses to give me directions to the place. Not that that will stop me from eventually going there. With my new punching skills, and the realization that I could probably walk around the robot, I go back and check out the vertibird again. Unsurprisingly, I don't get to steal the cool power armor, but I do get a yellow key card for a reactor that may come in handy later. It's hard to say. I can see a game like this giving me an important-looking MacGuffin, only for it to be completely useless. Talking to the town greeter, I was too busy looking at cow droppings at first to notice them. I get a lot of information on the happenings in town, but more pertinent to the main quest is that Jenny at the bathhouse is the best place to start looking for Vic. There's not much demand for old world goods in Klamath, so Vic has been traveling back and forth between the Den lately to sell his wares. Jenny describes the Den as Star Wars reference, so it's a good guess that Vic got into some trouble. Let's get on that road again. Oh, I just can't wait. As always, I talk to the traders to see if there's anything of interest, and I get my first weapon of the game, brass knuckles. Not nearly as easy to get equipment in Fallout 2 as the first game. Inquiring about my main quest has the vendor tell me about a vault city, but since I don't have any specific directions, I'll have to leave that for later. Other locations of interest are the west side of town, where a guy says that he'll sell me a car if I get the right parts, and the Brotherhood of Steel, which is apparently not just limited to the remnants of the Mariposa military base, but has locations all over California. Joshua, well, just look at his dialogue. He outright tells me that I need to go to the Slavers Guild to find Vic. What a baffling interaction. On the east side of town, the leader of the Slavers Guild, Metzger, is keeping Vic captive to fix some sort of radio. He seems like a really pleasant guy. Talking with Vic himself, he agrees to help me if I can get a radio back from his place in Klamath for parts. I should have just stolen everything from his place after all. It's a good thing that there isn't a time limit in this game, because going back and forth between towns takes a while. Anyway, I get the radio and get the radio fixed back up so the Metzger can listen for enclave transmissions. But I still have to pay a huge amount of, not bottle caps. Bottle caps were replaced by traditional gold coins in this game. I need cash, and this time it's not as easy as selling a gun that I grabbed from the world's worst assassin. I mentioned before that there's a lot more side quests in the game, or at least they're easier to find, so let's go check those out. The obvious choice here is to clear out the town of rats. I know that regardless of how difficult Fallout can get, I can always rely on my ability to fight rats. The regular rats are easy enough, but this quest goes, literally, deeper than that. Down 3 levels into a giant mine underneath the town, there's a huge, super intelligent rat named King Rat. I was hoping that I could reason with it using my incredible speech skill, but as a rat, we all knew how this was going to go down. Quest completed, but I didn't actually get any money for that. In fact, I either couldn't figure out how to finish the rest of the quests, or the rewards were so paltry that it didn't seem worthwhile. New plan! Walking back and forth between Klamath and the Den occasionally results in an encounter where bandits fight off a merchant and their crew. I help the merchant out and take all the items the bandits have on them. It's not nearly as much as the original Fallout, but the spears I get sell for just enough to get the 1,000 money. Buying Vic's freedom, he gratefully rewards me with directions to Vault City, the location where he gets most of his supplies. I was sort of expecting more than that, but progress is progress. Heading out east, I encounter a couple of people in power armor, and their giant robot gunned down a family. Well, that's the Enclave, I take it. Continuing my journey, I come across another town, shady sand style, called Modoc. Nothing is happening here. In fact, I come back here much later to do some of the random assorted quests they have, but it's mostly stuff like blow up an outhouse to cover the whole town in feces. So I don't think I'm missing out on too much. Okay, Vault City! I can also see another location to the northeast, but let's find out why I can't get the gecko here first. The outer courtyard of Vault City has the usual amenities, a shop, clinic, bar, and people who are having various problems for me to solve, usually related to the denizens of the city being just awful people. Trying to get into the city proper has the guards tell me to come back in the morning. That's me falling into the classic Fallout blunder, never enter a city without it being daytime. Well, this is a good time to check out that northeast location, and it's night again. Whatever. I say hi to the ghouls hanging around town, but they just tell me to check out Vault City for all of my main quest needs. Oh hey, it's Harold! Harold gives me a summary of the events happening around town. Gecko has a big old nuclear plant that is running poorly due to a lack of some sort of MacGuffin item. As such, the groundwater is being polluted with radiation, and the nearby Vault City is not a fan of that. However, the Vault City residents despise ghouls too much to help with the issue. Blah, blah, blah. I'm going to need to get that MacGuffin and fix up the power plant to proceed in the story. Back to Vault City. They're still not letting me in, but as long as I can get a day pass, I'll be able to wander around and get them to tell me that I need to fix the power plant to access the vault. We all know where this is going. Thankfully, the guy working the customs office is so amazed by my ancient, stupid-looking vault suit that he just gives me a day pass for free. I never would have guessed that my inability to find better armor would actually come with some benefits. Welcome to Vault City. It's a beautiful place where they love slave labor and extreme prejudice against everyone else in the wasteland. Asking around, I find out that they had a gecko at one point in time, but they used it to create the city in the first place. My only hope now is finding another vault and seeing if they still have one. Well, at least I know the thing works. Funny thing with the Fallout games is that I could just start walking around the map to find a vault. It's not like they're in short supply. A third of the locations in Southern California either were a vault or had a vault. That's 13, 15, the one in Necropolis, and the one in the Cathedral. Still, let's see what else is happening in the city first. Meet with Lynette, first citizen and leader of the city, who the customs guy thought would be very interested in the original vault suit. And she is. Only to become much less enthusiastic when she learns that I don't have my flask on me. Not as much of a joke this time, it seems. Even though the only reason I left it behind was because I saw Vic had 3 more of them at his place. I'm not walking all the way back to Klamath, so I reload an older save file. All right, peep this genuine Vault-Tec branded flask.
Very well, let me see. These are authentic.
There we go. She now reluctantly tolerates my presence in the city. Whatever, that's enough to ask more questions. Lynette recommends searching the records in the original vault the city is built around for other locations of a gecko, but only citizens are allowed access. Getting citizenship requires taking a test, which I fail, by the way. Maybe if I had 10 intelligence and maxed out science and doctor skills? Or I could kill everyone in Gecko so they can shut down the power plant.
Operating a damaged atomic
Yeah,
power. You see, they are immune to
I'll think
radiation.
about
They
that.
don't
Anyway,
share
Counselor McClure, a couple rooms over, tells me that their second backup Gek was accidentally shipped to Vault 13, and they got a huge shipment of water chips instead. Here, let me just play the sound effect.
Ha, aha.
It all goes back to Vault 13, doesn't it? As I reloaded the game to get that flask earlier, I go back to Harold to have him explain the whole deal again, and then talk to the first citizen to work out a peaceful solution.
Absolutely not.
She does not care. No, I don't think I'm going to be getting that MacGuffin here, so I head out into the wasteland to try my luck elsewhere.
Atomic power plant.
Little did I know the costly
They are immune to
mistake I was
radiation.
making.
They don't care that they are
I've got 2 new locations on the map after, as always, asking the bartender. Reading and Broken Hills. Both the towns largely make their living trading uranium with Vault City and Gecko to power the plants. Walking to Broken Hills uncovers another location on the map. Entering a nondescript cave. Yep, it's the Khan's hideout again. They had a similar thing going on back in the first game as the Raiders location between Vault 15 and the hub. You may remember that was the place where their leader immediately shot me after talking to them. I came back there later with power armor and a flamer near the end of the game, but I considered that too unimportant to show in the previous video. Still did get a mention of destroying the Raiders in the ending, though. Fallout 2, on the other hand, considered them to be iconic enough to appear in this game as well. Okay, getting back to Broken Hills. It's a small mining community headed up by Sheriff Marcus. Hey, look, I can buy another Vault 13 flask in the general store. They're just insulting me at this point. Speaking with Marcus, there's some trouble down the mines, and some people have gone missing. And taking a look at the dialogue, I may also be able to recruit Marcus to travel with me, which is something I still haven't done in these games, even though the manual says that the protagonist from the first game canonically traveled with Ian, that guy in Shady Sands who told me about Junktown and the Hub, and Dogmeat, a dog. I don't know, I never found them. It's interesting to see the things that the developers considered important from the first game versus what I considered important in my playthrough. The mines could be a place where I can find high-tech nuclear power plant equipment. It's a long shot, I know. So I amble on over. The air purifier in the mines is broken and needs to be fixed. Despite my impressive repair skill, I need to get parts from New Reno, and it's about time I figure out where that is. Let's go right now. I want to check out the Casino Night Zone in this game. Arriving in town, well, between New Reno, New Vegas, and places like the Maltese Falcon and Gizmos, I think I see something of a theme for the developer. Gambling is not as powerful as it was in the first game. It could also be my build. I talk to the man in charge upstairs and start doing some professional hired gooning. My speech skills give me a free quest. Why not? First up, give a package that is likely a bomb to a guy named Ramirez in the stables north of town. There's a guy in the basement at the stables with an interesting name, but I don't have any reason to talk to him, and the guards keep turning me away. Ah well. I find Ramirez, hand over the bomb, and oh, it's just drugs. Well, that's easy enough. More gooning! Need to collect money from a porn studio this time. Mordino is well respected, so the transaction goes smoothly. Once he asked me to start murdering the heads of rival families, something that's both difficult and would probably lock me out of some content, I decide I've gooned enough for one day. And since I've got an unarmed build going, I flagrantly ignore what John Sullivan said and try out boxing in the nearby gym. It's more easy money and experience. Enough messing around with side content, I came here to get that part. I find Renesco on the west side of town, and after some very weird dialogue treeing, I convince him to hand it over. No more information on nuclear power plant supplies, and I've been all over Reno at this point, so I don't think I'm getting it here. I do one more boxing match and defeat my second opponent as easily as the first. Third opponent, not so much. And then it's a detour over to Reading. It's relatively close by.
Chosen, the spirits of our ancestors guide me to a world of dreams that I may touch thoughts. Our village suffers without the holy Gek. Your hands hold our lives as a father holds his children.
Hey, I'm working on it, come on. There's no time limit in this game, but that cutscene makes me wonder. Reading, another mining town, has a huge mine dungeon to explore. This is a Wanamingo. They got a lot of them here. It's like a Goomba version of a xenomorph. They are far too difficult for me to fight right now, but that doesn't stop me from trying. I should at least see what the quests are first. On the surface, I talk to the owners of the rival mining companies in town who both want an excavator chip salvaged from old machinery that can only be found in, you guessed it, the mines. I could also buy the mines myself for some extra money. The mayor is willing to let the deed go for 1,000 gold. If I got rid of the Wanamingos. Let's skip past my multitude of deaths and just say that I didn't get the chip or buy the mine. After that complete disaster, I'm starting to feel hopeless. The difficulty I'm experiencing comes down to having no money and seemingly no way to get money. I still haven't gotten any upgrades to my weapons or armor, and going between towns is becoming increasingly difficult. Even though I technically haven't been forced into any combat just yet, it's a matter of time, right? So now that I know the basic flow of quests, I go back and recreate Fancy Danny once more, but this time I tag stealing instead of repair so that combat is my only way to get a bit of cash here and there. Also, I picked gambling in the first game. I wanted to do something different. Lockpicking would have also been a good choice, but there aren't nearly as many locked containers as people walking around. By Klamath, I already have more money and armor than I did at all in that first run. In fact, when paired with the usual save scumming the game encourages, it's starting to feel a little too powerful. This leads me to put down a ground rule. If I fail to steal from an NPC, I will not try stealing from them ever again. You may say, why not just live with the consequences of failing to steal? It's because the person I'm stealing from will usually kill me, resulting in me needing to reload the save anyway. By the time I get to Reading, I have metal armor, a handful of stim packs, and a quite powerful shotgun that I stole from a random encounter farmer. Not even a special encounter, just a normal, everyday farmer with a high-tech super shotgun. I blame level scaling. This still isn't enough. The Wanamingos are real powerful to the point that a 120 HP critical attack still doesn't slow them down at all. Well, I tried. I continue pickpocketing my way through the wasteland until I circle back to Vault City. So, Counselor McClure was a lot friendlier than the first citizen when I talked to him before, and, after taking his stuff, talking to him again about the power plant has him request the MacGuffin I need. Yep, all I had to do was walk 5 meters to the left back in Vault City to get that part. Yep. In fact, as of recording this, I have played through the entire game, and Reading, Broken Hills, New Reno are all places for side quests and can be completely skipped if you're doing the main story. How about that? There it is, reactor number 5. Fergus is the resident engineer in the Gecko power plant and is supposed to be able to install the part, but he keeps making excuses, so it's up to me. This bit is not a simple repair or science check, but an entire puzzle. So, I need to get the maintenance robot in the core to do a specific set of actions to be able to install the part, or turn off the coolant and presumably blow up the power plant and kill everyone. I do not want to kill everyone. The order is simple. Make the robot interact with the machines in an anti-clockwise fashion. You can tell which machine is next in the sequence by examining them, or you can remember an elementary school level Order of the Planets puzzle. So it goes plutonium, neptunium, uranium. I was convinced that I was missing an NPC or an item that would tell me the order, making this take way longer than it should have. Moving on, the plant gets fixed. Hooray! I get to tell Harold what happened to the Fallout 1 protagonist after the events of the first game. Woohoo! And I become an official Vault City citizen. All right! There's a lot of junk being stored inside the vault if you have a high enough lockpicking skill. Maybe I should have built for that after all. But the real prize is figuring out the location of Vault 13. Except it's not included in the system. Strange. I do get the location of Vault 15, which, let's be honest, is enough to find 13 if you played the first game. Oh yeah, and Vault City is Vault 8. That's kind of interesting. For some definitions of interesting. Whew, that was a long journey. Good old Vault 15. Needless to say, it's been changed up since the last game, and now people are living here. People that don't want to let me into the vault. I don't want to just fight everyone, and because I'm trying to go to Vault 13 anyway, I head west instead.
Once again, my spirit touches you from the void. Chosen, our crops fail, our reserves are meager. Return to us with the gag. Your failure is our last light.
I'm working on it, okay? Oh, in the place where Shady Sands would be is now the much more impressive New California Republic with its president, Tandy. Okay, I said this before, but this is another one of those things from Fallout 1 that I did not expect to become this important in the sequel. Apparently, Shady Sands left a much greater impression on everyone else. This wasn't even shown in the first video, but Tandy is the daughter or granddaughter, I don't remember, of Aradesh. Who's Aradesh? He was the leader of Shady Sands back in Fallout 1. They did both have the full talking head avatar, but the dialogue was, "It's really boring around here" for Tandy, and "Please help get rid of the rad scorpions" for Aradesh. How was I supposed to know that they would form one of the major governing bodies in the sequel? After this, I was wondering if I was going to get to San Francisco and find immortal cyborg Rhombus in a death battle with super mutant god king Killian Darkwater. Whatever, my failure of properly showing the content of the first game aside, I'm still going west regardless. Encounters are getting real rough out here. I'm now fighting packs of Deathclaws and remnants of the Master's army that can kill me in a single turn. Save scumming my way forward, I eventually find the Mariposa military base? Where's Vault 13? Well, I guess this is how the developers are forcing me to enter 15 instead. I do a more thorough attempt to talk to the NPCs in the area and find Rebecca, who wants to speak with me in private. She tells me that people in the squat usually are hesitant to talk to anyone new, as the NCR has been trying to take over the vault as of late. However, her daughter has gone missing, and because nobody in the squat can help, she's desperate enough to turn to me for assistance. With this new information, I'm able to convince Dahlia, the person guarding the trail to the vault, to move out of the way. Hey, look at that. Speech coming in handy again. Chrissy gives me a quick summary of the events going on in the vault. It's the cons. Again. They've been supporting the squat to use the vault as a base. And that wraps up that quest. It may seem like that was sudden and confusing, and that's because it was sudden and confusing even when I was playing it. Long story short, the mayor of the town gives me a key card to get into the vault. After using the elevator built into the cliff, hey, what happened to that shack from the first game? I convince the cons that I'm a new person in the group, and they all leave me alone. Vault 15 has been a great showcase for the speech build. A doctor being held prisoner is only too happy to tell me everything they know about the cons' leader, Darian, and any potential weaknesses they have. I'm kind of happy to see that killing the raiders in the first game is considered canonical. On the third floor, I confront Darian, and oh boy is he not in any mood to talk. In addition to the flamer he's carrying, he also has 5 other guys with equally good weapons to back him up. Fighting Darian at this point is out of the question, so I explore the rest of the area. There's a lot of great items laying around, including a pile of computer parts, which seems particularly important. I quickly find out that they are extremely important, as these computer parts are the reason why the NCR has been trying to get into the vault. I'm able to turn them into the president, Tandy, for a massive experience and money reward. I don't end up doing much else in town, as protests for the game making me look like a fool for not covering Shady Sands enough in the last video. Oh, and since I didn't mention it before, the gun shop outside the city has some extremely expensive upgrades, so this reward couldn't have come at a better time. The Darian fight. This was the most frustrating part of the game for me. You would think that having the best equipment money can buy would make the fight easy, but combat is much more difficult in Fallout 2. The usual encounters in the first game were 2-3 enemies at a time, maybe more if they're weak characters. Fallout 2, on the other hand, almost always has at least 6 enemies in every fight. You saw a good example of that with the Deathclaw pack earlier. A Deathclaw is already a really hard fight, but one that has a bunch of smaller Deathclaws to back it up is just ridiculous. This hasn't been an issue until this point in the game. Fighting is only truly necessary in the random map encounters, and you can just run away from those or reload until they don't show up. Then we come to Darian. Darian cannot be talked to. Darian and his crew will kill me if I try to run past him to access the console and run away. There's no easy use a science or repair check on a random object in the vault to kill him or stop him from attacking me. There is something like that, but it just turns on a force field at the entrance and Darian is on floor 3. The doctor does have advice related to his dog, but that dog died a lot with no effect during my many attempts, usually to Darian's own crew. I even started reading guides to see if there was something I was missing, but they just said to kill him with no additional strategy given. I did learn there was a set of combat armor hidden in the far left corner on the second floor, so that's handy, but not enough to win this fight. It's a simple conclusion. I have a bad combat character. To explain more, judging by the perks that I was seeing when leveling up, charisma builds are not supposed to be doing combat by themselves. Having high charisma means that I can have half a dozen other characters following me around and helping me out in a fight, and I should be doing that. I didn't want to bring anyone else along, though. No reason for that, it's just how I felt like playing the game. That means that I kept trying the fight over and over until, eventually, I had a weird circumstance where Darian accidentally hit some of the other cons on the floor, which caused them to become hostile to him. This, along with exploiting a door to make sure that I never got attacked by more than one person at a time, worked out just well enough for me to be able to kill him and escape to the elevator. Then the problem becomes trying to get out of the entrance to the vault. Everyone at the entrance has become hostile, and it wasn't looking good. So what did I do? Keep reloading until I was successful? Give up and start a new character? Reload from earlier and get more party members until I could fight Darian with less issues? Nope. Here's the big shocking reveal. I just needed to access a console over on the left side of floor 3 instead of the one that Darian was standing at. That's right. You don't have to fight him at all. It's entirely optional. This is my fault. After finishing the game, I looked back at guides and found that there are other less combat-focused ways in the NCR to find the Vault 13, but I was being extremely stubborn in my attempts to do it this way. I know. You've never heard that on this channel before. Point is, I have the location for Vault 13 and a new animosity for the cons. Yes, even more than I already had. On the way to Vault 13, I encountered the Maltese Falcon Casino from Fallout 1. Yeah. Inside are a bunch of player characters talking about the first game, as well as Set and Fallout 1 Tandy standing around. Yeah. Oh, that dog I mentioned before is here too. Yeah. Anyway, Vault 13 is in the same location as always, but I couldn't find it on the map until I accessed the computer in 15. This place hasn't changed at all. Literally. It's the same map as the first game, minus a bunch of rats. There are, however, some new residents. Deathclaws. You can't see me shrugging, but know that I'm doing that right now. Goofier confirms that they do indeed have the gecko that was supposed to be sent to Vault City, and they'd be willing to give it to me if I help them fix the main computer of the vault, because I'm such a nice and pleasant and high karma person. It's not only Deathclaws living here. On the third floor, I find some familiar faces like Dahlia from back at the squat. There's also a mysterious robed figure that tells me the original denizens of Vault 13 were abducted by the Enclave. In the Overseer's room, I talk to a guy named Jim and find out that the Overseer was overthrown by the rest of the vault and replaced with an automated system. To which I say, good. Kicking the computer a few times reveals a missing component that Jim says could be found either in New Reno or Vault City. Here's where things take a turn for the worse. I spend a long time attempting to get to New Reno. You see, encounters in this game scale with your levels, letting raiders get better weapons and a ludicrous amount of animals to start spawning. The last level I got in Vault 13 is now making me reload half a dozen times just to partially travel between towns. Along with the horrible failure that was that Darien fight, I'm finally convinced to give up on the charisma build and instead create a somewhat optimized killing machine for my third iteration of Fancy Danny. It's not that bad to get back up to where I was now that I know the order of the main quests in the story, right? Here's the character screen. More stats, more criticals, small guns tagged and in the 150s, perception, intelligence, agility, luck, all as high as I could get them without losing too many other stats. I even got a sniper rifle at this point, so Fancy Danny can crit an enemy for 150 hit points while halfway across the map. I really wanted to stick with the original idea for the build, but I'll spoil this right now. Combat does not get any easier, and even with what should be an overpowered character, I still run into a lot of problems. Being honest, that's likely because of my refusal to take other party members rather than any sort of issue with the game's difficulty. In New Reno, I discovered a gun shop that really could have come in handy the last time I was here. To think I said I explored the area thoroughly before. By asking about unusual supplies, the shopkeep is willing to sell me a voice recognition module for 3,000 money. Would have been funny if that wasn't the part I needed, but it is. Thankfully, 3,000 is an insignificant sum now that every raider is carrying a firearm worth at least 1,000 money each. I'm even able to get all my cash back immediately by just giving him all the guns I collected while fighting my way to New Reno. Check out these encounters I got while going back to Vault 13. You can see why making a new character was a good choice. I cram the module into the machine of the vault, and Goofier gratefully hands over the gecko. Woohoo! Mission complete, baby! Of course, getting back to Arroyo still takes months, but it'll all be worth...
Frozen. The shadow of darkness arrived before you. Dark souls came. They took everyone. A rush of wind came. On it were great dragonflies that spat flame. Evil men crawled from the beasts' bellies and brought death to our warriors.
Oh, we all saw it coming, especially because they did the same thing in the first game. Well, looks like I'm going to Navarro. For being an endgame area, Navarro doesn't have much going for it. There's only a gas station and Chris, this guy dressed up like a Children of the Cathedral member. Asking about vertibirds has him direct me further south to San Francisco, which I really should check out already. People have been telling me about San Fran all game. Alright, this is all clearly a facade, and it doesn't take much searching around to see that there's an exit in the upper left corner of the map. Okay, I don't think I'm gonna be walking into Navarro. And I don't think I'm gonna be able to convince the guys at the gate to let me in. If anything, I'm surprised that they didn't start firing on me the second that I walked up. Yeah, unlike a lot of other story quests, this one doesn't have an obvious solution. Oh, and by the way, I got lucky even getting into Navarro in the first place. The encounters you find around here are enclave patrols who all have power armor and the best weapons in the game. Naturally, they all one-shot me whenever I see them. Okay, remember back in Vault 13, there was that mysterious robed figure that told me about the Enclave? They mentioned that the Enclave had been searching around the military base, so I was thinking that might be a good place to find power armor and ID, something that could give me authorization to get into Navarro. There's a huge pile of rubble blocking the entry to the base, but examining it does say that a good explosion might clear it. Are you ready for the worst puzzle in the entire game? No, you cannot just use the dynamite on the rubble. That would be silly. What you need to do is look for a teeny tiny, nearly unnoticeable metal rod laying on the ground, attach that metal rod to the nearby minecart, attach dynamite to said metal rod, only hint on that is that they keep a lot of dynamite in the shed near the entrance, and then keep pushing the cart until you pass a strength check to send it into the rubble. I don't know what the developers were thinking on this one. It took me a lot of fumbling around and trying different things before I could even begin to understand the nonsense they were asking me to do. Ah, good. Just what I wanted to see. A bunch of dead Enclave soldiers. I get some good stuff and holotape lore from them, but I'm clearly expected to go deeper if I want a real prize. There is an issue with that. No power in the base for the elevators. I was hoping that I would be able to use the rope on the elevator shaft, Fallout 1 style, but no such luck. For the past few levels, I wasn't sure what to use my skill points on, so I have a bunch of them stocked up to use on repair to be able to fix the generators. Not the ideal situation, but that's why I'm rotating my saves, right? On the other floors, there are a lot of strangely well-armed super mutants, too well-armed for me to be able to fight easily. I can get a few of them, but even my amazing stats and all the pathing exploits I learned in the Darien fight aren't enough to fight off the nearly dozen angry super mutants I encounter. Time to change strategy, and by that I mean go and buy better items, maybe get a couple levels. Oh, but first I get another special encounter, a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. I miss getting overpowered laser guns in these. Alright, it's time to check out San Francisco. I don't know the exact location, but Chris back in Navarro gave me a good idea by saying that it's directly south from there. With the entire area being surrounded by enclave patrols in the north and remnants of the Master's army in the east, it's a safe assumption that this is where they keep all the powerful late-game stuff. As expected, all I need to do was head west from the military base. San Fran is split up into a couple different sections. The first is the main part of town, where you'll find all the shops, the doctor, the usual. Over on the east side is the base of the Shi, the people in charge of the town. Right now they're working on some sort of secret project, but I do get some information on the rebuilding of San Francisco. The city was destroyed after the war, but the remnants of a Chinese nuclear submarine worked to restore the city over many years, and now it's one of the major powers in California. At the docks in the northwest section, there's a group of people who come from all over the wasteland to San Fran and now live in an old oil tanker, hoping that it one day might be fixed up enough to sail again. There's also the captain of the ship, who refuses to talk to me until I complete a quest for one of the residents. In the northeast of the city, there's one more location which I went to so infrequently that I had trouble finding footage of it. Yeah, there's Scientologists in the game. You can encounter them on the world map, and there's also a church in the NCR. They're actually called hubologists, but come on. So yeah, they're pretty hokey even for Fallout 2, a very hokey game. I imagine these guys don't get mentioned much in the future games, but I have been surprised before. Look forward to Fallout 4 when I fight a giant robot L. Ron Hubbard. On top of everything else, there's another Brotherhood base in town. Unlike the ones back in the Den and the NCR, which I didn't even show, that's how unimportant the Brotherhood have been, Matthew, the guy running this one, is willing to answer my questions about him. He explains that the Brotherhood used to police the usage of technology in the world until their influence started to wane over time. Not really what they did back in Fallout 1. They were reclusive, but they didn't do much policing of anything, and certainly weren't as expansive as they are. Yeah, whatever. More important is that the Enclave have shown themselves to be the superior technological organization. They've also secretly been running the chem, slave, and weapon trades to have enormous power over the wasteland, even though their actual goals remain unknown. The flight technology provided by the vertibirds is the biggest advantage the Enclave has over the Brotherhood, so I'm asked to get the plans for one of them, and Matt will give me access to everything the Brotherhood has. No mention of Mariposa military base, and the Brotherhood, as the hint guys of the game, would be the ones to tell me to search there. Not sure how, but it must be that I can get into Navarro as I am right now. I am still gonna explore the base on the off chance that there's an alternate solution, but, well, we'll see. I did look at the equipment offered in town, and while there's a multitude of powerful items, especially if you're building big guns, nothing fits my build better than the sniper rifle for now. It's all expensive too, to the point that I'd have trouble finding enough money, or inventory space in the case of guns, to pay for any of it. I do get a Pancor jackhammer, which may not be as powerful as the sniper rifle, but being a shotgun can hit in a larger area and more enemies at once. At Mariposa, the third floor continues to give me a lot of problems, so I try clearing out the second floor of the base to maybe get one more level or some other good items. The floor has a lot more narrow hallways to prevent myself from being overrun by super mutants, and while it still took a few tries and many lucky shots, I'm able to get to the lockers around the floor. And, to my surprise, one of the lockers has power armor in it. Neato. The armor gives me just enough of an advantage to clear out the third floor of super mutants and super duper mutants. Yes, that is a real enemy type in this game. On the fourth floor, just look for yourself. Remember, comma and period advance a single frame if you're watching this on YouTube and want to figure out what he said for whatever reason. Melchior is not a tough fight by himself, but he has the ability to constantly summon death claws. The priority was taking out Melchior first, and the sniper rifle combined with my high luck had him go down to a critical in a single turn. That was followed by making sure the Death Claws couldn't attack me by breaking their arms. Bringing back that classic strategy I used with Harry in the first game, as the Death Claws have way too much health otherwise. My prize is the most powerful pistol in the entire game, and the last little bit of lore from the Enclave. They were mining out the base to get a pure sample of the forced evolution virus before the workers became super mutants and rebelled. Nevertheless, they successfully got the FEV, which cannot be a good thing. I make a stop back in San Fran, where I decide to gain the trust of the tanker captain because, why not? Might be difficult to do side quests when I gain the attention of the Enclave. One of the people living in the tanker, Chip, lost a bet and had their spleen removed by one of the shopkeepers in town. That spleen was then sold to a researcher at the She base, although they didn't realize it was a human organ. Thanks to pop culture references, I'm able to convince him to give it back to Chip. Also, I have to pay the local doctor 1,000 money to replace the organ, but that amount is nothing to me. Weird quest, but not out of character for Fallout 2. It's going to take Chip some time to recover, so it's back to Navarro for me. Utilizing my new optional Super Boss pistol, I can take on the Enclave patrols in the area, but just barely. They carry a range of powerful energy weapons and the same pistol I'm using. Of course. Ugh. Using the proper entrance to the base seems impossible, so I figure talking to Chris is my best bet. I let him know about the Brotherhood's interest in vertibirds, and that does open up some new dialogue. He tells me about a trap door in the gas station that leads into the base, so that I'm distracted from him calling in an alert. Thanks to my great stats, I snipe him before he can finish, and I'm able to enter the lower level of the base without anyone realizing it. Well, until they find Chris dead the next day, presumably. That was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. The obvious first course of action is to loot the base for everything they have, and I already have a new suit of power armor to put on. The advanced power armor the Enclave uses, as the name would suggest, an overall upgrade to the original set. I'd also say it's a lot easier to get, provided that you can make it through the Enclave patrols. And after I spent such a long time in Mariposa. When I get up to the vertibird maintenance hangars, the guy on duty hands me over the plans immediately because one of the other mechanics has been asking for them so much lately. Sure, I won't say no. I am so surprised at how well this is going. I expected another Darien-level disaster. Not much else going on in base, not that I stuck around much longer in an extremely hostile area where they could kill me at any second if they want to. Then again, look at how these patrol encounters are going with my new power armor. It took dozens of hours, but I'm finally getting to that minigun flamer power level I had in the first game. I toss the plans over to Matt back in San Fran and get 20,000 experience? Whoa, Nelly! That also means entry into the Brotherhood's technology clubhouse for cool kids once again. They got all the best guns, a free set of power armor, the regular kind, not the advanced stuff, and an AI supercomputer. I learn a bit more about the Enclave. Apparently they're the remnants of the US government, or as someone describes them later, a bunch of rich assholes desperately trying to recapture the power they had before the war. Ace also works as a free doctor and can install permanent stat increases for me. I grabbed a module to increase my perception as one of the many spoils at the military base, and although the operation takes 2 weeks, there's no time limit in the game, so I go for it. Oh, whoops. Well, at least they left the Brotherhood base intact. Matt made a copy of the vertibird plan, so I still have the original to give to the She researchers for another pile of experience. It also accomplishes a step in a quest where I can meet with their emperor, but since the next part involves assassination, I decide it's not worth it for the reveal that the emperor is actually an AI, I assume. That's always how these plots go. At the tanker, Chip is rested up, and the captain deems me worthy to talk to. It's a good thing I did this because the captain used to serve the Enclave and tells me that the tanker could sail right up to the final area of the game, an oil rig where they have their main base. I never would have guessed that I would line up the endgame quest this well. First up, I need fuel for the ship. This is as easy as talking to one of the she scientists and getting a hardened suit of power armor. There's already some power armor in the Brotherhood base, and a guy in the Scientologist's base will harden it for 10,000 money. I got more than enough cash at this point, so aside from having to talk to the Scientologists, there were no problems getting this done. If you're wondering, hardened power armor still isn't better than the advanced power armor I'm currently wearing. Second up is the FOB from the Navarro base. Thanks to my high speech skill, I tell them I need the FOB, and they give it to me. Nice. My only other option was to fight everyone in the base, which, as long as I stayed underground, would have been fine, but this is way easier. I'm also starting to feel bad for Chris. No one ever checks up on him. Oh yeah, I also kill all the slavers and cons at this point. Next, I get the identify friend or foe part from the storage room in Vault 13. This was extra easy because the Enclave came by and killed everyone in the vault. Probably while I was in suspension again. Whoops. Again. Lastly, I need to install the parts. This involves going into the lower part of the ship where there are a bunch of monsters. I rescue someone trapped in the corner, so I think this is another way that I could get the captain's trust if I didn't want to search around for a human spleen. Whatever. Anywho, I install the parts into the ship's computer, and it's off to the oil rig. Oh wow, look at this. Attempting to hack a console near this ostentatious display reveals some interesting commands. I'll keep this in mind if I'm forced into any fights here. On the next floor, I start looting all the lockers by instinct. It's not necessary so late into the game, but I want to see if there's any plot-related items left around. Farther in, I get a nice reunion with the people of Arroyo. The Elder tells me that they were captured to be experimented on with FEV, and I should blow up the place. Yeah. Fallout already established that every villain base has a built-in self-destruct system, from military bases to cathedrals. The next floor has the most contrived video game puzzle I've seen so far. It's one of those activate a console to open some doors but close others, and the floor is electrified, so I'm constantly getting damaged. The game even calls it the puzzle room when I get experience for solving it. Fourth floor is the bomb storage and presidential office area. Even so far in the game, it remains very silly. The vice president is there to say a bunch of nonsense and Dan Quayle quotes. Everybody loved Dan Quayle quotes back in the 90s. Talking to the president, I'm worried that he might call the guards on me, but speaking with him a second time has him eager to tell me the plan of the enclave. I'm just going to put this entire conversation in. There is a lot happening.
History first. There was a great war, long before we were born. Our gallant soldiers fought from the Yukon to the Yangtze. We were winning, too, and then those damn Reds launched. We barely got our birds up. Well, no, it didn't. But at least it knocked the damn Red Menace back into the Stone Age. Well, no, not quite. You see, we had planned ahead. We were ready. We had a number of sanctuaries that would enable the glorious American civilization to endure. This facility, the vaults, were part of the great plan. Actually, they worked almost exactly the way they were supposed to. You might call it a social experiment on a grand scale. The vaults were set up to test humanity. Some had not enough food synthesizers. Others had only men in them. Yet others were designed to open after only 6 months. They each had a unique set of circumstances designed to test the occupants. Vault 13 was a special case. It was supposed to remain closed until the subjects were needed. Vault 13 was, in scientific parlance, a control group. An unfortunate and unforeseen accident. However, as it turns out, a rather fortuitous one. As it turns out, we needed test subjects from untainted pre-war human stock, your ancestors in Vault 13, and some freshly mutated stock, the villagers from Arroyo. For the project, it's almost ready. Humanity's salvation is almost at hand, and the United States of America will be the progenitor of that rebirth. The only way for true humans and democracy to be safe is to cleanse the mutants from the globe. We humans will take back that which is rightfully ours. We found a research facility in operational shape about 70 years ago, a former military base that had been used to research a special virus. Yes, the FEV virus. It was originally developed to turn soldiers into super warriors, but it failed. The warriors were tough and strong, but far too stupid. However, our brilliant chemical core altered it to turn it into a staggeringly effective killer. Any humanoid that isn't inoculated against its effects before its release will die. That is the project. No, that's humanity's last, best hope. That's what we've been working towards all these years. Oh, but that's one of the advantages of the FEV virus. We can release it right here, and the jet stream will carry it worldwide. It'll have plenty of time to cleanse every nook and cranny of the globe. Test subjects? Your villagers are all descended from Vault stock, and we had to make sure that the FEV toxin was still effective. The subjects from Vault 13 test that, and an inoculation against the FEV. It's hardly necessary. I'm sure we could, and it would work, but there's no reason to do so. Never. Part of the president's job is to make the tough decisions. A lot of near-humans will sacrifice their lives for the return of humanity. Humans will prevail. Oh, I don't relish this decision. If there was another way, but there isn't. No price is too high for the survival of the human race. If you were human, you'd feel the same way. Yes, I do. Even killing me won't help you. There's nothing you can do to stop the release.
Well, There you have it! The final floor has the nuclear reactor on it. I've got to stop the reactor to free the prisoners, but how am I going to do that? The answer is blow up a couple consoles with dynamite, which also causes a meltdown that will explode the entire Enclave base. Okay, I think Fallout 2 has done a good job at setting up the Enclave as the most powerful organization in the Wasteland. You saw how hesitant I was to try anything when I first got to Navarro. That's why I've been trying to play the oil rig as a very stealthy, careful character. Right now, the Enclave's not weakened, vulnerable, or even distracted in any way, so I should not be able to win this fight. They should have gunned me down as soon as I stepped off that tanker. The only way I felt like I would deserve to win against this overwhelming force is by subterfuge and using that key card that I got all the way back in Klamath. You know how a lot of stories go. Because the Enclave is at full strength, then this key card would be the one fatal flaw I could exploit to defeat them, a want of a nail style. But that was apparently cut content. So I blow up the consoles. Really, anyone could have defeated the Enclave. They have a bunch of weapons just lying around in lockers. They don't care too much about searching for intruders, even when a big tanker sails right up to the oil rig. And although you probably wouldn't survive the ensuing fight, neither would the Enclave. All right, let's blow this popsicle stand. Right.
You've gotten a lot farther than you should have. But then you haven't met Frank Horrigan either. Your ride's over, Muty. Time to die. Me, Frank Horrigan. That's who. United States Secret Service. You aren't going anywhere from here. We just did. Time for talking's over.
Final boss of the game, Frank Horrigan. Repeat that scene 10 more times and you'll get an idea of how tough this dude is. I didn't realize at first, but the guys over on the right can be talked to, and they also tell me how horribly I'm going to die. Thanks, guys. I wanted to avoid killing the president, because like I was saying, I shouldn't be able to do that. The Enclave are supposed to be so powerful, why can't I just walk up to the president and shoot him in the head? But activating the turrets in that room is the only chance I have, and you can't get the passkey any other way. Even with a horde of turrets shooting at him, he still gets me down to 1 HP at one point in the fight. Frank Horrigan is by far the most powerful person in the entire game, and I could not imagine fighting him fairly. The build-up Frank got was all warranted. It's too bad he showed up after the reactor meltdown started.
You haven't won here. You and your muty bastard friends are gonna join me in a big ol' mushroom cloud send-off. I just triggered the self-destruct. The work will go on. You didn't do nothing here except seal your own death warrants. Duty. Honor. Courage. Semper Fi.
It's too late, Frank. I already won the game. Woo!
After the enclave's destruction, the refugees of Arroyo and Vault 13 resettled, building a new community with the aid of the Garden of Eden creation kit. Finding themselves hundreds of miles from their vault, the members of Vault 13 chose to join the villagers in establishing a new community, and their technical expertise, combined with the villagers' survival skills, allowed the new settlement to grow and prosper. 2 generations of the same bloodline were reunited, and their savior, the Chosen One, became elder, presiding over the village in the years to come. With Metzger gone, slavery disappeared from the area. Becky's casino bar grew quickly, and Rebecca Dyer's reputation as an honest casino and bar owner brought her the business needed to buy out her competition and expand. The den flourished, and it soon gained a reputation for being a tough but honest community. In the years to come, Vault City suffered greatly from raider attacks. Eventually, the situation grew so desperate, the citizens were forced to request aid from NCR. Within a month, a large detachment of the NCR's military was stationed in Vault City. The military presence quickly became an occupation force, and Vault City became the first of NCR's border territories. The Mordino family grew greatly in power as Jet's influence spread across Northern California. Within a year, they had seized control of New Reno and expanded their empire, absorbing the Den and other surrounding areas. There was little violence in the conquest, as Jet had weakened all resistance to Mordino rule. Optimizing Gecko's reactor created a power surplus in Gecko. The Vault City Council, unable to expand because of their limited power supply, yielded to internal pressure and was forced to take over Gecko to control the reactor. The peaceful ghouls of Gecko became slaves and spent the rest of their lives serving Vault City. Several years after the Chosen One sold the excavator chip to dangerous Dan McGrew, Dan used the superior production of his Morningstar mine to buy the Cocoweef mine and then to reopen the great Winnemingo mine. Dan then used his industrial clout to forge an alliance of convenience with the families of New Reno, trading gold in return for protection. Shortly after your last departure, the powder keg of racial tension in Broken Hills exploded. Racist humans fought against mutants, ghouls, and humans who sided with the mutants. The few survivors of the battle destroyed the mine, ensuring no one else could profit by it, and disappeared into the wastes. The failure of diplomacy at Vault 15 slowed the new California Republic's growth into the north. Embarrassed by the failure, President Tandy was replaced by Roger Weston. When the new government finally returned to Vault 15, they found nothing but a ghost town. The squatters of Vault 15 continued their meaningless, non-productive lives. No one noticed when the desert wastes finally claimed the squat. By eliminating the death clause of Vault 13, you banished yet another species of the realms of extinction, proving once again that genocide is a viable solution to any problem. The Shi flourished, creating a botanical scourge on the radiation surrounding their beloved town. Though this vine could not grow in other soils, the Shi took care to nourish it in their lands. They continued to grow in strength and prominence, forming the basis of a new empire. As for the tanker vagrants, well, as vagrants do, they drifted on.
What a dumb ending. Again. I also like this game.